This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. In breaking news, leading scientists worldwide are conducting experiments to determine if Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are the perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate. However, it appears the study was inconclusive, as the scientists couldn't help but eat all the Reese's. Because when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's. Find Reese's now at a store near you.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Peak Northwest, an outdoors and travel podcast by the Oregonian and Oregon Live, dedicated to the adventure and exploration of our beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm Jamie Hale.
And I'm Vickie Connor. Together, we take you to some of the most beautiful and interesting destinations in our region, discussing where to go, what to do, and places to see. And today, we are putting our tent and sleeping bag and a whole lot more on our bike for a one-nighter bikepacking trip.
That's right, Vickie. You really recently returned from your first bikepacking experience, as I understand it, and I am actually really excited to hear about this.
Yes, this was just about 2 weeks ago that I went on this trip, but I've been wanting to go bikepacking for so long, but I didn't really know what all was involved or, where to get started or who to go with. So I finally had the opportunity to do it, and it was kind of a great start to, we're on the precipice of summertime here. So it was really nice to kick off with a bikepacking trip. Jamie, do you have any experience with bikepacking at all? I know you're not super into biking.
No, yeah, I did not grow up with much experience biking. I grew up in mainly in the suburbs of Philadelphia, where it's all farmland and there's nowhere to bike aside from in the street where people aren't looking for bikers. So I just don't have that kind of comfort or experience on a bike. So it's not something I tend to think of doing, but I love the concept of bikepacking. I love the idea of getting on your bike, putting everything you need on there, going off campground to campground. I have some friends who did a great bikepacking trip they were just telling me about back east, going from Pennsylvania down to DC. And it sounded like just a great experience of going, town to town, campground to campground, doing all of this stuff. So it seems like it's a really great way to do some long distance touring that's not, walking or backpacking.
Exactly. And I follow these different accounts on Instagram where I see people going on these really cool epic adventures, just got everything on their bike. And I'm like, okay, I need something very intro level. I just need a one-night trip. I don't need some crazy expedition out in the wild. And I actually found that. And I did this trip through one of the affinity groups that I am a part of called Friends on Bikes. So it was a total of 10 women or non-binary folks joining, and all people of color. And there were 3 leaders of the trip who kind of organized the route for us, told us what we needed. And all 10 of the people on this trip kind of had mixed prior experience with bikepacking. So some people had done it frequently, other people maybe once or twice. And then there were people like me who had never done it before. I think there were 2 or 3 other people who this was their first time bikepacking. So there are a few of us who needed some gear and didn't really know what exactly to expect.
Well, before we get too deep into the story, because I want to hear all about this.
Yeah.
For the folks who are listening and are like, I have no idea what they're talking about right now. Bikepacking, what exactly is the definition of bikepacking?
So We might have had a few other episodes roughly talking about this, but bike packing is essentially, like you got your bike, and if you know what backpacking is, you're taking all the gear that would be in your pack for a backpacking trip and essentially just fixing it onto your bike. So, yeah, a lot of people do it in the backcountry. If you are going on trails, obviously you need a bike that's suitable for going off road. As of right now, I just have a road bike. So this was a good trip for me because we stayed on just paved pathways. But other people go bike packing with like gravel bikes, mountain bikes. And essentially, you get some bags that there's a whole industry dedicated to bike packing. So there's bags that are specifically made for attaching to your bike on your bike rack. And, you're taking your sleeping bag, your tent, your food, your stove, all the stuff that would be in your backpack and putting it onto your bike.
Do you feel that like by putting it on your bike instead of on your body that you're able to carry more stuff or like less stuff? Or is there a difference in doing that?
I thought it was just about the same amount. I was actually really surprised because when I've seen people's setups for bike packing, I'm like, no way in heck that you can, fit all the stuff that you need. I felt like my sleeping bag was going to take up, all the space possible. And I was seriously questioning because I am not one to pack lightly. I'm someone who brings stuff like, oh, just in case this activity happens or that activity. What if I need a hardcover book with me? So I was a little nervous, but I packed everything onto this bike and I still had room for more, quote unquote, luxurious items if I wanted to have them.
Yeah, I mean, what do they say? That you pack your fears when you go backpacking?
Yeah.
I imagine it's similar with bikepacking where like, if you're afraid of being too cold or not having enough clothes, you're going to pack too many clothes. Or if you're afraid of going hungry, you're going to pack too much food. But it sounds like you did it just right if you had a little extra room. So kudos to you on that. I'm so curious. So you have this bikepacking trip. You said it was a one-nighter, right?
Yes, one night.
And where did you go? What was your route? What was your destination?
So the group of us in this Friends on Bikes group, we met in Northeast Portland, kind of centrally. We all met, did some icebreakers because I didn't know anyone else on this trip.
Wow.
So met everyone. Everyone was super nice, which is great. And then we hopped on the Max train and took the Blue Line out to Hillsborough, which I'm not a frequent Max train rider, and overall I enjoyed the experience, but there were some delays out to Hillsborough, so it was kind of a trek to get out there all the way to the end of the line. But so we went out there to Hillsborough, and this was on a Saturday morning. Met at like 9 a.m., went out there, took about an hour, and then as we got off that stop in Hillsborough, we immediately got some coffee. It was kind of raining at this point, which, kind of poor timing. But then again, we all just like took our bikes at this coffee shop. They had a parklet set up. So we all like took cover under the parklet while people caffeinated and waited out the rain because that was one thing I did not pack was a rain jacket. So it was torrential. I know. I'm kicking myself for that. But
you had a room even.
I know. But the thing was, the forecast said that it was going to be clear. So I was like, okay, it's just one cloud that's hovering over us. Torrential downpour for like 30 minutes. And then we were on our way. And praying that this cloud was not going to follow us. From Hillsborough, after our coffee stop, we made our way out and we made our way basically from Hillsborough to the Banks Veronia Trail. And this is a trail that I have actually done before. That's really nice. It's car free. So in the time that we went from Hillsborough to this trail, we were riding alongside traffic, but it wasn't heavy traffic really whatsoever, which was nice because with 10 people, you're taking up some space. But we got out to the Banks Veronia Trail, which, there's tons of tree canopy. And at this point, we were about 10 miles in, and then we had another 10 miles on that trail out to Stubbs Stewart State Park. So half of it was riding with traffic, and the latter half was riding without traffic, which is really nice. And there's basically like a decent incline up to the state park. But we took lots of breaks, which was nice because a lot of people were not used to biking with all of the gear on their bikes, and that does slow you down. Being this was a trail that I had done on my bike without any stuff, I could notice that as you're going up that incline, it's getting a little hot. We are sweating here, and this seems a lot more difficult than the last time I did it. The vibes overall were great the entire time. Everyone was just happy to be outside and on their bikes, and someone brought a little speaker on their bike, so we had some music jamming the whole time.
Nice. So Banks Vernonia Trail was just named a national recreation trail. So this is, I know it is just a really great spot to hike, to walk, to bike. What did you think of that trail?
It is amazing. This is one that I go out to or try to at least once a month. Because it is so peaceful, and there's no better peace of mind than biking without any cars around, truly. Mm-hmm. The path is great. It's well paved, and there are some bathroom breaks along the way too. Some pit toilets, which is nice to have. And you go through, like I mentioned before, kind of a tree canopy, and it's all green everywhere. And then at one point you come out of that tree canopy and there's farmland. There's just cows grazing, and it opens up like that. And then as you're approaching the state park, just really mossy trees, ferns everywhere, really peaceful, to the point I've done this trail before on my bike, and I accidentally fell off of my bike, clipped in, but I just landed in some moss. So it was actually a really comfy fall.
Wow, so pleasant.
Yeah.
Just to fall into a bed of moss.
I know. I just laid there for a little bit and thought, could be worse.
You could just fall asleep right there. Yeah. That's great. When you talk about a paved trail away from traffic with bathroom stops and nice scenery, that's got to be ideal for, at least for me, that's ideal biking condition. That's the kind of place where I would go biking.
Absolutely. And it's never really all that crowded either. So you're not, biking and swerving around runners or anything. This was one of my first group rides as well, to where, someone who's up at the front will call out runner front or runner ahead, and then everyone repeats it to the line behind them. So it was kind of fun to navigate, as other bikers are approaching or we're approaching them, knowing those little signals to give the entire group so everyone's aware of their surroundings.
That's so cool. It turns it into this great community effort where you're all sort of in it together as sort of one moving mass together, it sounds like.
Right. It was nice because there were also at times, if you did want to go faster, the leader of the group would set a pace that you could keep up with. But no one was dropped. If you needed some more time, the people at the front would, stop and let everyone kind of come together, regroup, check in how we're feeling, if we're needing those bathroom breaks and whatnot. So, it's just very beginner friendly. And I thought that all the leaders did a really nice job of making it the least intimidating experience possible, which if you're not always riding your bike or doing this sort of activity, it can seem a little daunting.
I bet. So you take the Max out there, you ride the trail. Did you just sort of ride straight to the campground? Did you have any picnic breaks along the way? Anything like that?
We did make an excellent stop right before we got onto that Banks Fernia trail. We stopped at a place called Jim's Market in the town of Banks. And let me tell you, Jamie, the fried food selection at Jim's Market gave me life at this point in the trip. I will say the downfall of my light packing was that I probably did not pack enough snacks or just stuff to eat on the bike. Like I brought my camping food, I brought my water, but at this point in the trip, I was needing something like salty after, biking 10 miles, something to lift the spirits a little bit. And one of the trip leaders had mentioned, Jim's Market, they have excellent JoJo's. And so
yeah.
I feel like the entire group was just like, JoJo's, yeah, let's go.
Oh my God.
So not only did they have JoJo's, they had corn dogs and zucchini sticks and chicken tenders, taquitos, literally so many fried food options. And if you aren't into fried food, it's Jim's Market. They have a ton of other, regular grocery items as well. But I'm all about the fried food, I must say.
I got a bunch of boring non-fried food there too, if you want.
I'm sure they have salads or something.
Get an apple or a piece of fruit. Come on. No, that the JoJo's for a trip like that, I think a fried food is perfect because you're getting that fat in, you're getting that salt, you're replenishing.
Yeah.
That's a great time to do it, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was perfect. Also nice, specifically for this bikepacking trip, was that outside there were a number of picnic tables. So someone would watch the bikes, other people went inside, got their food, and then we all ate together. So that was an excellent, much needed little break in the trip before we headed on to the state park.
So it looks like from the town of Banks, if you're going north to Stubbs Stewart, it appears to leave a lot of that small town behind and get into sort of more of that rural environment. Is that kind of how it was?
Exactly. Yeah. So that really was that point where it went from riding with traffic or roads that could potentially have cars, even if it's not heavily trafficked, and then getting onto the part where there were no cars around. And it was just farmland and trees and crisp air.
So then how long did it take you to get out to the state park? And did you do any other stops on the way, or was that just a straight shot?
So yeah, it took just over 4-ish hours, in total, including all of our stops from the time we got off the MAX train to the time that we got to our campsite at Stubbs Stewart. So there were plenty of stops where we regrouped, took water breaks. That is also including the stop for lunch at Jim's, and just a couple other like bathroom breaks or snack breaks. Someone brought those nerd gummy clusters, so we were just like passing those around or just eating gummy worms. That was the ultimate snack, the gummy worms. Those really were nice. But so just over 4 hours, and that was 20 miles there to the state park from the MAX.
This is a bit of a tangent, but let me ask you something here. Are you the kind of outdoors person who brings candy with you on hikes? Or like these kinds of things? Are you that person?
Normally, yes. But again, I was more concerned about packing camp food for some reason. Like in all my backpacking trips, yes, I'm someone who will bring like candy, and I love like a sweet sour moment with the candy. But I completely blanked on it. Luckily, though, someone else, specifically one of the group leaders on this trip, brought this like huge bag of the Nerds gummy clusters, and it was enough for everyone to share and like indulge themselves on.
Oh my gosh. I'm like the trail mix guy. I'm like the trail mix and water guy. And so when I see people pull out like candy, it's like a whole other experience that I'm not aware of. It's like not my culture. When you talk about Nerds gummy cluster, I don't know what that means. I can imagine. And I've got a picture in my mind, but I have you're speaking a different language entirely to me.
I feel like this candy is also somewhat new within the past like 2 or 3 years. And it's really just gone off the charts. Like people are obsessed with this candy. This is a candy that I gave away at our house for on Halloween to trick-or-treaters. And the
Good
kids
neighbor.
like go feral for it. It's so good. But yeah, they're these tiny little balls of like gummy on the inside. And then on the outside is Nerds coating.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll need to research this along with my Gen Alpha slang, and I'll really understand the kids.
But it is just that little like burst of sugar that
Yeah.
it's a different type of fuel.
Well, I'm glad you had plenty of fuel. It sounds like between Jim's and the Candy Crew, you've got plenty of fuel to keep you going. So, but 4 hours, not that long from the time you get off the train to the campground. So you got there, the campground at Sub Stewart. What was the campground like? What was the site you were at like?
It was great. This was also my first time at Stub Stewart, and there were a few people that had been there before. Apparently, they have really great cabins there that people were raving about. But we just had 3 regular campsites, all next to each other. Each of the campsites had a picnic table, a fire ring, and like a gravel area for you to put your tent down. And they also provided firewood, which was really handy at this campsite. Obviously, no one was toting firewood like on their bike. And they also had bathrooms with like running water and flushable toilets. So I always feel like that is super luxurious at any campground I go to.
For sure.
Yeah, and it was also pretty crowded. There was one like really big group. I'm not sure if it might have been like a church group or some family reunion or something that was nearby. And every site that I could see around us was filled at this time. So pretty poppin'.
Now, were these like bike specific campsites, or these just regular pull up campsites you could do with your car?
These were regular pull-up campsites.
Okay.
There was a parking lot, a stone's throw away from where we were. So you couldn't, for these spots specifically, you couldn't like drive right up and have your car right next to your site. You did have to like walk a little bit with your gear.
Gotcha.
But they do have hike and bike in campsites as well, from what I've seen.
A lot of state parks do that. They have like they've been catering more to bikers specifically. I know some have like lockers and spots specifically set up for people who hike or more likely bike in to a lot of these places.
Yeah.
But this was just a regular campsite.
This was just a regular campsite.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we got there, I think all of us were pretty pooped at this point. It had been such a long trip, from the initial meetup in Portland, making it all the way out there. We were all, even with the food stops, we were pretty hungry at this point. So everyone also pretty much brought their own camping setup, because we were kind of strangers. So each person, like the 10 of us, were all setting up our individual tents. And getting our sleep system all set up. And then from there, we each had our own stoves too. Like we were each making our little frozen space food backpacker meals on a jet boil collectively. And then, what's nice is that the sun is going down so much later now. So I think it was still around like 7 or 8 p.m. that we were just chilling in the sunlight. At one point, it did get pretty darn chilly. So we got that fire going. One of the women on this trip had made us homemade falafel. And so, yeah, she was like, do you guys want some homemade falafel? I was like, please give me it all.
Yeah.
And then a few hours later, she's like, oh, I also made homemade chocolates for everyone.
Oh my gosh. Come on. That's great.
I know. I was like, this could not be any better. I couldn't make this up. So yeah, enjoyed the campfire for a little bit, but then also we were all really tired. So I feel like we went to bed as soon as the sun set type of deal. I had one of the best sleeps of my life after that, after all that biking. One thing that I do not regret at all was that I've been in need of a new backpacking sleeping bag. The one that I have, like once it gets pretty chilly out, I feel like I need like a liner in the one that I had before. So I did upgrade my sleeping bag to like a 15-degree sleeping bag. It was so chilly that night, so I wrapped up, mummified myself with like the hood on top, and then in the middle of the night, I woke up like really hot and warm and like almost suffocating in the sleeping bag. And money well spent on that thing. It kept me toasty.
Oh, that's what you need.
Yeah.
I love, I mean, I don't love camping in the cold generally. Like I wouldn't say like, oh, I love camping in the cold, but I do love that when I'm camping in the cold, like you said, like mummifying yourself up and like getting all tight and cozy in a little cocoon. Something so nice about that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And then when we woke up in the morning, there was a light rain coming down, had my, rain fly on my tent. So it was nice to just like wake up to the sound of it. And we all once again made our individual breakfasts. I had some lovely oatmeal, and then we packed up and headed back to the max. And it was nice that on the way back it was all downhill, so we were just cruising. Probably took
Nice.
half the time of what it was coming up initially.
Well, it sounds like such a cool trip. Do you feel like what are your main takeaways when you're reflecting on this? Yeah.
My number one takeaway is that bikepacking is so much better than backpacking.
Okay. Say more.
Okay. I have no back issues when I'm bikepacking. I think that's the biggest thing ever for me, is that my back is always like killing me. My body is just in pain when I'm backpacking, which maybe I'm just not packing my pack correctly. But I feel like there's a lot more wear and tear on your body with backpacking. So I think that's the main thing for me. And then you can also pack a little bit more, I would say, on your bike.
Yeah, I guess when you're talking about the difference between bike packing and backpacking, I mean, access is one that comes to my mind where like there's certain places you can bike pack that you can't backpack. There's certain places you can backpack that you can't bike pack. It's like there's different experiences. So it's like depending on where you want to go or what you want to do, you've got those opportunities. Like I would never tell someone like, oh, go backpack along the Banks for Nonia Trail, because like that's walking so many miles on a paved trail with a backpack sounds miserable. But at the same time, you're not going to go bike pack like the Rogue River Trail, right? So like it seems like it's just opening other avenues from different and additional experiences you might not have otherwise.
Absolutely. And I've told, some of my friends about this trip, and they're like, "Oh, you need to try like this trail or that trail." And now, I'm looking at, okay, well now I need to invest in a gravel bike so I can go out there, get out there, and full investment into another new hobby, I see.
Well, I was going to ask. So, I mean, are you hooked? Are you into this now?
I am so into this. I would love to do this all summer long. Unfortunately, I have a few other trips planned, so I say this now. We'll see if I get back out there this summer and commit to it. But I had such a great time, and it was really a perfect intro to doing this. But I'm excited to get out on like away from the paved trails, more on a gravel type of ride, and a little bit further away from cities or small towns, out more in nature.
Are there any specific destinations you have in mind that you're like, that's the trip I want to do?
One of my friends was telling me that they bike packed kind of like around South Sister.
Wow. Okay.
And they had to like stow their bikes. They didn't ride all the way up to the summit of South Sister, so they like put the bikes off to the side. Had just backpacks or minimal gear, and like went to the summit and then went back down and camped around there. So I don't know. That seems a little extreme, but long story short, I don't have any immediate ideas. I know that there's a ton out there and I can just do my research a little bit more to find one. But if you're listening and you have any recommendations for kind of like a beginner bike packing trip that's more of a gravel ride, let me know and I'll add it to my list.
There you go. Send Vickie your recommendations. But Vickie, any tips for folks who maybe are listening to this and are like, I'm kind of bike packing curious at this point. What do you have for folks who maybe want to get into it?
I would say there are a ton of people out there willing to help you get started, whether that means like going to your local shop and just asking what you need for your specific setup to get you out there, whether that's adding a rack onto the back of your bike or helping you find different bags or just gear in general that is affordable and works for your budget. There are a ton of like gear swaps out there. I think that's one of the biggest barriers with anything biking related is the costs that are involved. But what's nice about Portland is that there are so many people who bike and so many people who just like want to recycle or give their gear away to others. So it is doable, I would say, no matter the budget.
I love that. And I'm really excited to hear about the bike packing adventure. I feel pretty confident. We say this a lot, but I do feel confident we're going to hear more about this in the future.
I hope so.
But I think that will do it for us today. Until next time, though, you can watch our videos on the Oregonians YouTube channel and view all of our travel and outdoors coverage on OregonLive.com/travel, as well as HereIsOregon.com.
Please leave us a rating or review if you enjoy the show. And if you want to support this podcast as well as our local journalism, please consider a subscription to Oregon Live. You can find details at OregonLive.com/pod support. Also, if you're a fan of the show and you're interested in potentially sponsoring it, you can get in touch with our marketing people at advertise@Oregonian.com. This episode of the show was produced by me, Vickie Connor, alongside Jamie Hale.
Stay safe and happy travels, everyone. Until next time, we leave you with this 10 seconds of Zen.